1945, about his older brother Joseph Byron Lichtenbaum, better known as Bud. Joseph served in the U.S. Army during World War II and was a prisoner of war. Now, Harry, would you welcome, and would you like to read the article?
Thank you. I'm gonna see my baby. I'm gonna see my baby. I'm gonna see my baby when I get home on Victory Day. That's one popular song that Private Joseph B. Lichtenbaum, 21, son of Mrs. Elizabeth Lichtenbaum of 12 Vine Street, will never forget. And not because he has a baby, or even a wife, or even a girlfriend for that matter. But it seems that Private Lichtenbaum loves popular songs, collects records, and that was the first one he'd heard when he was liberated after 16 months as a German prisoner of war. All they ever played was Lily Marlene, the twice wounded infantryman said at his home. I got so darn sick of it. I own over 2,000 records, but I'll never buy that one. When Bud, as he's called, was 10 years old, his mother gave him a phonograph. That started it. With it came Artie Shaw's Lover Come Back to Me. After that, Bud was a goner, an inveterate record buyer. No long hair, mind you, strictly swing. He left Weaver before his graduation so he could work at Stern & Company, a wholesale music establishment. He was there a year and a half when Uncle Sam beckoned. Bud went overseas July 21st, 1943. Walked right through North Africa and later went to Naples. He first saw action at Mount Rotunda near San Pietro on November 15th. On December 4th, 1943, he was point man on a patrol and was wounded in the arm. Our men were getting killed off right and left, he said. We saw 50 of our men surrendering, but we kept fighting back and forth. We were about 10 yards from a brick house when a German on the second floor threw a grenade which landed in the center of us. We all got a piece of it. Bud was sent to Manitoba, Italy, to a hospital for a few weeks, then entrained at Lambsdorff in Upper Sicilia. Next stop, Stalag 344. The privates were all sent to coal mines and stone quarries, so an Englishman forged my pay book and wrote in it that I'd been made a corporal. There were 11,000 men there, mostly British. We were there for 6 months, only living because we had Red Cross packages. I got sick of doing nothing, so I volunteered to work. I was sent to work in a slam press in a sugar factory. There we stole sugar and sold it to the civilians for food. We could hear the Russian guns, so they moved us by boxcar to Hammelburg in Bavaria, to a miserable camp where they fed us less than at the first one. I volunteered to work on a farm. Then the Americans got close, so they marched us 225 miles in about 20 days. On April 28th, I was in Horgertshausen, ready to go to sleep for the night in a barn. We were just having a cup of coffee when we saw a mob of Germans running up the road, and behind it was a Jeep with all the American lieutenants in it. The night I was freed, I walked into a German house and turned on the radio. There was Johnny Mercer's bandbox playing I'm Gonna See My Baby. It was terrific. Buddy's bought 53 new records since he came home, to add to the 2,197 he had before he left. He reports to Lake Placid, New York on August 1st. Another member of the family is in the service, his brother, J. Lichtenbaum, 18. That's Bud's story from his point of view.
Thank you, Harry. Now Harry will read a piece that he recently wrote entitled The Four Telegrams, which is the home front perspective from younger brother Harry's perspective while his brother Bud and Jay were overseas.
My brother fought in North Africa and Italy. He'd been missing in action for 6 months when the third telegram arrived at home. My mother never gave up believing he was alive. She held the unopened envelope in her hand for what seemed to be an eternity. I tried to imagine what was going through her mind as, hands trembling, she cautiously opened the envelope flap. She slowly unfolded the message and read it to herself as I watched with anticipation. A bittersweet smile formed on her lips. I breathed a sigh of relief. He's alive. He's alive. The Red Cross had found him in a German prisoner of war camp on the Polish border, Stalag 344. Thank God he's alive. That was June 1944. I was 13 years old. The first telegram came only 18 months earlier, on December 1942. That one was addressed to Joseph Lichtenbaum, and when it was delivered, it made me laugh. No one ever called him Joseph. We called him Bud. He was only 18 years old. Bud opened the telegram, and in view of the times, he knew what it was going to say. Greetings from the President. You are ordered to report to Camp Croft, Spartanburg, South Carolina for infantry training. The next 6 months saw a constant stream of letters back and forth between Bud and those of us at home, Mom, my brother Jay, and I. I eagerly awaited the arrival of each letter and read with wonderment what had seemed to my adolescent imagination as a marvelous adventure. Bud went overseas in July 1943, and then we started to receive V-mail from him. V-mail. Photographed copies of letters with portions cut out for security reasons. This went on for 6 months. Then the second telegram arrived that December. Bud was missing in action. By now, Jay had joined the Navy, so I was the only one left at home with Mom. After the initial shock, she said to me, I know he's alive. God is looking over him, and he will return to us. Trust me. There was another woman who lived nearby, I can't recall her name, whose son was also missing in action. By sharing their anguish, they seemed to draw strength from each other as the months crept by. After the third telegram arrived telling us that he was no longer missing in action, but had been found, I watched as my mother put together survival packages for Bud, which were given to the Red Cross. She would pack the boxes with warm gloves, mufflers, underwear, shorts, pants, socks, soap, toothpaste and brushes, paperback books, and playing cards. She always included writing paper and pencils, even though he was not allowed to write to us. We later learned that he used the pads to keep a diary that he kept hidden from the enemy. After the war, he told us that he only received a few of the boxes. The rest mysteriously disappeared. Nevertheless, he said he was only living because of the Red Cross packages. As the Allies got closer, he was moved to Bavaria, and we lost track of him again. In all, Bud was a prisoner of war for 16 months. The final telegram came in April 1945. The camp to which Bud had been moved in Horgetshausen had been liberated, and he was on the way home to us. My mother held that telegram in her hands for a very long time. It was the first time I had seen her cry. This is my sister Doris. We called her Dory, and still do. She worked in the Navy Department during the war. This is Joseph Byron Lichtenbaum, only we never called him that. We called him Bud. This is Jay. Jay's 3 years older than me, and he eventually went into the Navy. This is myself. I was 13. when Bud went into the service, and I was the only one left at home with my mother. This is our mom, Elizabeth Lichtenbaum. Only we just called her Mom.